Okay, so as mentioned earlier, I'm going to talk about the basics of writing a research paper. Okay, these are just some tips for you guys. Now, what sort of research paper am I going to talk about? I can think of two. Either you are currently working on your thesis, or perhaps later on you are going to write your thesis manuscript or research proposal, or you are already done with your thesis, you have some data, and you want to write a paper, an article, so that it can be published later on. Okay, or perhaps you already know some of this stuff from high school. No, some of you may have joined local, regional, and even international science fairs. So, in a way, some of you have already written a form of a research paper. No, so okay lang naman yon. Siguro we can do some review. No, kung meron na kayong experience when it comes to research papers. Okay. Okay. So, tanong po muna, have you written a research paper? Thumbs up for yes, thumbs down for no. Pwede rin naman pong gumamit ng Zoom icons if you want. Wow, ang daming thumbs up, nakasulat na. So far, wala pa tayong thumbs down. So in a way, meron na pong, merong isa, hindi pa nakapagsulat ng research paper. So again, this, when I say research paper, pwede nung high school, baka kayo nagsulat na ng research paper even in high school. Okay? So, dahil karamihan naman po ay nakapagsulat na ng research paper, ano pang ginagawa natin dito? Well, perhaps, like I said, we can still discuss this and have a review. No? O kaya baka meron tayong kailangang ayusin. So, thank you very much for those of you who answered the question. So, at least may familiar naman tayo in terms of writing a research paper. So, thank you very much. Okay, the very first thing you need to do or to think about when you write your paper is you should know your audience. Sino po ba ang magbabasa ng inyong research paper? Okay, so either if this will be published or if you're going to submit this to a journal, no, for publication, so definitely the first person who will read this will be the editor, no? And then ipapasa niya sa reviewer. So sa reviewer, either one or two or three reviewers yan, depending of course on the journal, no? Of course, if it is published or even if it is a thesis manuscript, scientists will also look into this. They might be interested in your work and they want to read your paper. So, pwedeng scientists and other professionals. Now, when I say professionals here, you have to remember that not all are experts in the field of research. No? So for example, ang paper ninyo is about biochemistry. And I am not a biochemist. I am a chemist. Sure, I know something about biochemistry, but I don't know a lot. No? So kailangan, when I read your paper, I should also be able to understand. Or, kung ipapabasa nyo to sa isang geologist or to an engineer, okay? So, these people should still be able to understand what you're writing about, no? What is the research all about? So, those things you need to understand. Okay, of course, kung ito ay thesis, then perhaps your thesis panel will read this before you defend your thesis, or if it is a thesis proposal, then of course the panel will be the first set of persons who will read your paper. Okay? And of course, students. Okay? Whether that is a journal article or a thesis manuscript, some of the students would like to look into your paper and see if they can repeat or reproduce the procedures, if they can modify the study or add some more experiments regarding the study. Okay? So, all of these things, no, kailangan iisipin natin na sila yung magbabasa ng inyong manuscript.
Kung titignan niya yung...
Okay. Okay, so what are the assumptions here? Considering those people. Well, number one, these are all busy with little time to spare. Okay? So, kailangan, pagkabasa mo, number one, it should be attractive in the sense that it will catch their attention. Uy, interesting itong paper na to. Magandang basahin niya. Okay? And also, maintindihan ko. No? Kapag labo-labo, ano bang pinagsasabi nito? So it will not be that interesting. And in other words, you have to get to the point right away. Tungkol saan ba itong paper na to? Tungkol saan ba itong research na to? Ano yung ginawa mo? Okay? So, you should be direct to the point. Wala nang paligoy-ligoy pa. Okay? They prefer to read clear and concise articles. Okay? So, direct to the point, clearly stated, and you should have a logical flow. Okay? And like I said earlier, not are all experts in a particular field. No? So kahit yung thesis panel ninyo, hindi lahat yon pare-pareho yung expertise nila. No? Some are biochemists, some are chemists, or not all are physical chemists. No? Lalo pa, halimbawa, you discussed yesterday, you had a webinar on in silico studies. No? Hindi lahat ng inyong professors or sa thesis panel know something about molecular modeling. And so you should be able to understand their viewpoint. You should be able to explain, no, those concepts to them. Okay? So, hindi sila experts. Kahit po sila ay chemist or registered chemist or may PhD. Okay. This is something na first and foremost na dapat nyo ring iisipin. Writing a research paper is different from creative writing. No? Sabi ko nga, kailangan direct to the point tayo. Don't use flowery words, no? Hindi siya creative writing, hindi siya poetry, no? This is technical writing. So dito tayo sa technical writing, meaning it focuses on factual, straightforward content. Versus creative writing, it's more imaginative and symbolic. Ay hindi pwedeng ganon sa science, no? Your goal is to inform, to instruct, and to educate the reader. Whereas creative writing, you are there to entertain, to provoke, and inspire. No? So for technical writing, it will follow a certain format. No? It's formal and it follows a standard style of writing, which we are going to discuss today. No? So, hindi siya tulad ng creative writing, which is informal, artistic style of writing. No? Huwag kayong magtatanong doon sa inyong paper. No? What do you think is the beauty of this synthesis? No, you don't say that in a research paper. Sabi mo, straightforward. This is the first time that this compound has been synthesized according to our knowledge. Something like that. Okay, graphics are of course very important here, but the graphics used in technical writing or in a scientific paper is for added information. Okay? In a way, you're also telling a story, but in a factual, evidence-based form. No? So, graphic. Yun ang purpose ng graphics natin doon. Figures and tables. For creative writing, it's more of an art form na gusto natin to get the attention of the reader. No? For it to be more attractive for that particular topic. Okay? So, again, isipin natin our frame of mind when you write a scientific paper, technical writing to. No? And you should follow a certain form. Okay. Okay, so when it comes to writing overall, ito yung mga tips ko sa inyo. Of course, if it is for a research proposal, then you use the future tense muna. Okay? So, halimbawa, when you talk about extraction, so pigments will be extracted using ethyl acetate, hexane, ethanol. So, future tense yun. Now, present tense, you will use that, of course, for known facts and hypotheses. Okay, so for example, the average life of a honeybee is 6 weeks. Okay, kasi known naman yun. No? Past tense, if you are describing, of course, your experiments. What happened? So past na yon, nagawa mo na kasi, you have conducted it and you are showing the results. So for example, the average lifespan of bees in our contained environment was 8 weeks, whereas the average life of a honeybee is 6 weeks. Okay, so ganun yung difference niya, no? Okay, abbreviations. Do not use abbreviations in the text except for units of measure. No? So abbreviate these when using them with your given data. So 2 millimeters, mm, 10 minutes. So pwede yun. Now, except for temperature units, degrees Fahrenheit, degrees Celsius, Kelvin, never abbreviate units of measure when using them in a non-data context. Okay? Kapag wala ka naman data doon, then do not abbreviate. Okay? So for example, we measured the object or the length in millimeters. Okay? Time was recorded in minutes. Temperature was measured in degrees Fahrenheit or degrees Celsius. Okay? So, dun pa lang tayo mag-abbreviate again kapag may kasamang data siya. Okay. Oops. Okay. Active versus passive verbs. Okay. Use active verbs whenever possible. No, of course, there are times na nagiging passive, but as much as possible, gawin nating active. Okay, so keep that in mind. For example, the mouse consumed oxygen at a higher rate rather than oxygen was consumed by the mouse at a higher rate. Okay? Lalo pa, especially, what is the subject of your sentence? Ano bang mahalaga? Is it the oxygen or is it the mouse? Yun ang ating iisipin. No? In this case, what happened to the mouse? So siya yung mas mahalaga. So give importance to that. Kaya nga active parate. The mouse consumed oxygen at a higher rate. Rather than yung passive, oxygen was consumed. Lalabas, anong mas mahalaga? Yung oxygen. Di ba? Kaya use the active sense. Okay? Okay. Things you need to avoid, at least try to avoid, no? So long and complicated sentences, kapag masyado na pong mahaba, chop it down to 2 or 3 simpler sentences. Madalas ko po yung na-experience, nababasa sa mga thesis students, abay, isang buong paragraph, isang sentence. Huwag naman ganon. Okay? There are times wherein you can use these long, complicated sentences. Saan yon? Sa methodology. No? Makikita niyo yon later on na pwedeng medyo mahaba-haba. But for the body itself, no, magandang simpler sentences. Why is that important? Kasi kapag masyadong mahaba, it gets lost in translation eh. Parang so ano bang gusto niyo sabihin? No? So chop it down. Irrelevant material. Focus guys. Again, lagi kong sinasabi yun, ano ba yung subject? Ano bang important topic dito? Is it what's happening to the mouse or is it about oxygen? So, kapag about the mouse, then huwag na natin masyado pag-usapan yung oxygen. No? Bakit mo sinasama dyan? So, focus on the subject. Focus on the research topic. Okay? Contractions. No? For example, don't. You should write do not. Isn't. You should write is not. Okay? Abbreviations, I've already mentioned some of them, acronyms, except for well-known ones. Now, ito, better you spell it out first, saka nyo lagyan ng acronyms after you spell it out. No? So halimbawa, NMR, hindi naman po lahat nakakaintindi anong ibig sabihin ng NMR. Okay? So you have to spell it out. Nuclear magnetic resonance. Halimbawa, ganon. No? Tapos lagyan nyo ng parenthesis, NMR. So that later on, you can mention simply NMR spectroscopy, no, as the method. Okay? Pero sa simula, do not abbreviate, do not use acronyms. No? Citing too many references. Go for the most recent ones and again, the relevant ones. No? You don't need to cite too many references unless guys, you are writing a review paper. Pero kung hindi po yan review paper, you don't need to mention, huwag kayong masyadong pabida dyan. Na ang dami-dami kong references, 100 references sa thesis ninyo. Pero kung titignan naman namin, bakit 19 kopong-kopong pa to? No? Go for the updated ones. No? Baka for all you know, nabago na yon, disputed na yon, hindi na siya totoo. Okay? So, go for the recent ones and the relevant ones. Okay? When you cite references. Okay. Okay. Redundant words or phrases. Medyo iklian na natin, no? Due to the fact that, simply say because or since. Immediately apparent, simply say apparent. In the case that, in case. And also, and. In order to determine, ayan, madalas ko makita to eh. In order to determine, so simply state there to determine. Or even to try and determine, to determine na. Okay? Para hindi na humahaba ang inyong sentence. Okay? Okay, too many successive prepositional phrases. So, for example, we ran a model simulation of the ocean for research into the evolution of the thermocline. Okay? So, better, we ran an ocean model simulation to conduct research into thermocline evolution. Diba? Mas maayos, mas magandang basahin yun. Okay? Okay, expressions of belief. Ito, mamaya bibigyan ko kayo ng example, no? Try to avoid. Try lang naman no? We believe this model result to be true. It's better to simply write, we show through our analysis that this model result is consistent with empirical evidence. Okay? Please take note that science communication is not about conveying a particular belief. Okay? You want to show evidence. Now, sometimes it is an expression. Minsan nakikita ko rin, nababasa ko rin yan in journal articles. No? We believe that this happens. This phenomenon is occurs due to something like that. Okay? Try to avoid those. Pero minsan kasi, like I said, it's an expression nila. No? For me, I would rather write something like, perhaps this phenomenon is due to this. No? Or most probably, the phenomenon is ganito. Or the phenomenon can be explained by ganyan. No? By this and that. Okay? So, pwede nyo namang i-rephrase, reword, so that it will not be an expression of your beliefs. Okay? Kasi pwede namang mali yun. No? Okay. Use statements and back-to-back adverbs. So, try to avoid, for example, the ocean model simulation run quickly and cheaply. Okay? Better write something like the ocean model simulation required 1,200 hours using 100 computer processors. Why is that important? Again, how quickly is quickly? When you say it ran quickly, how quickly? Or cheaply? How cheap is cheap? Okay, you have to be sure about it. No? Anong ginamit mong data? Anong parameter? Okay, so ito, this is more specific. Okay, so it required 1,200 hours. How cheap? Ayan, 100 computer processors. So something like that. Okay, mas defined ang quickly and cheaply. No? Okay, pause muna tayo. Sige nga. Let's comment on the sentence. The results are given in figure 1, where it is shown that temperature was directly proportional to metabolic rate. Okay, mukhang at first glance, it looks okay, di ba? The results are given in figure 1, where it is shown that temperature was directly proportional to metabolic rate. Mukhang okay naman. But there is a better way of stating it. Okay, sige nga, kayo muna, pag-isipan ninyo, what is a better way of stating this particular sentence? Okay? Sige, pag-isipan natin. Ayan, sumagot na yung aso. Oo, ayan. So, tignan natin, what is a better way? Let's compare it with this one. Okay, ayaw niya. Ayan. Results show that temperature was directly proportional to metabolic rate, figure 1. Diba? It's simpler. No? And it's direct to the point. Diba? So there is a way to write it na hindi ganun kahaba and it's also direct to the point. Okay? Don't worry about this. Sometimes it takes some practice no? Sa pagsusulat nito. No? Ako rin naman dati, ganyan din ako magsulat. Pero later on, no, experience lang naman. Oy, thank you for all the hearts. I love you too, guys. No, salamat sa mga hearts ninyo.
So in terms of the title, okay, it should be, of course, simple, attractive, accurately reflects the investigation. Okay, it should be unique to your study, and you should be able to compare your study with other studies, no, or previous studies. Okay, so kailangan yung title mo should be unique. Must not include the words a study of, an investigation of, a research on, no? Hindi na po natin sinasama yan. Okay. Ayan, meron nang nag-comment. Paano yung mga contributions na binigay lang po namin sa group chat namin and then somebody else typed them for us? Ala, guys, di ba ang instruction, gamitin yung Mindomo to come up with your mind map. There is no way for me to check whether you have contributed to the mind map. No, the only way for me to check is the use of Mindomo. No, syempre hindi ko naman alam kung anong dinidiscuss nyo sa group chat ninyo. Okay? So, mag-isip kayo, paano nyo ipapakita sa akin na may contribution kayo. Okay, so let me continue. Okay, so I know in high school, marami na akong nababasang ganito eh. So when you present your papers in high school, usually it's an investigation of a study of, meron kayong ganun terms. Dito po, tanggalin na natin yun. So you don't need to put those phrases. Avoid acronyms that are known only to specialized communities. Sometimes you have to expand this. No? So, for example, when I say EELS, EELS, no, using EELS as a technique, no, for a particular analysis. So, ang ibig sabihin ng EELS is electron energy loss spectroscopy. Hindi nyo alam yon. So, in the paper, I have to mention that kasi masyadong specialized yun, no, for that particular technique. So sometimes you have to show the meaning, no, and not use acronyms. Should be expressed in not more than 20 substantive words, of course. Huwag naman masyadong mahaba ang inyong title. Okay? Okay, so let's look at some of the examples and let's comment on this. Okay, so first, a study on fruit ripeness monitoring using an electronic nose. Okay, so what's the problem with the first title? Of course, makikita na natin, you don't need to mention a study on. Okay, wala na dapat yan. Oops, ano nangyari? Okay. So tanggalin na natin yung study on. So you can go ahead with the fruit ripeness na. Okay, so you start with the fruit ripeness monitoring using an electronic nose. Okay, so that's fine. Now, the second, a simple and novel system for colorimetric detection of cobalt ions. Okay, the use of a simple or novel that might be fine, but we can simplify this. We can simply say a simple and novel, tanggalin na yung system, colorimetric detector of cobalt ions. Okay, pwedeng ganon. No? Especially if you're coming up with a with a device, no? So tanggalin mo na yung system. So pwedeng ganun na. Okay? Next, signal on detection of DNA whole transfer at the single molecule level. Okay? Mahalaga ba itong gamit ng single? Okay, so that's the question. If not, then probably we can remove this word. So pwedeng DNA whole transfer at the molecular level, no? Or molecular level. Ganon. Okay. Or at kung mahalaga yung single, it can be signal on detection of DNA whole transfer at a single molecule. No, pwede ganon. So again, it depends on the main idea. Now, last title, how graphene is cut upon oxidation. Tama ba to? So this is a question. So grammar lang, how is graphene? How is graphene cut upon oxidation? Okay. Now, before, they do not allow questions in the title. No, but nowadays I've been seeing a few articles with a question, no, as part of their title. So acceptable na to. Okay, but of course, try to minimize this question form, no, for your title. Okay. Okay, now, writing the introduction. Okay, so for the introduction, you want to know what am I going to say here, you know, as part of the introduction. Okay, bottom line, you want to know the reason, you want to express or inform your readers the reason why you are writing the paper or the reason why you conducted the study. Okay, so you need to introduce here a more specific topic. The one that I gave you in your first assignment is a general topic. Okay, so now we have to go to a more specific topic, and that will be part of your introduction. Your background information should be, of course, supported by references. And you need to take note what has already been done by others and inform us about the purpose of the paper. What will it address? What sort of research problem will it address? And how does it relate to previous work? Okay. So in general, you have these three main points. Okay, the importance of the study, your background information, the purpose, okay, of the study. Okay, so for the importance, why undertake this research? You talk about the problem. In the background information, what have others done, so that you'll know the context of the research and you provide evidence. Is there a gap, no, between your study, what you want to achieve, and what was previously known? Okay, so for the purpose, how does it relate to what has already been written? And what is so different or special about your particular research? Okay. And that is part of what we call a three-paragraph rule or a three-part rule. No? So first part, you mention as the problem. Okay, so state the concept, problem, or a particular inquiry. State the impact and significance of your research. Kaya nga, kailangan meron kayo noon. And state uncertainty. Is there a controversy? Is there a certain problem based on literature? And then the second part, why is that problem important? Okay, so here you talk about review of your related literature to support that uncertainty. And that's why you want to address it. Did the previous studies answer a key question? If not, then here you can state it. Okay, and are there conflicting results? No? Bakit sa Brazil ganito ang percent efficacy ng vaccine, pero pagdating sa United Kingdom ganito ang efficacy? So meron tayong problema doon and you want to address that, no? Bakit kapag healthcare workers mababa ang efficacy compared to non-healthcare workers? So you want to discover that. Okay, limitations of previous results, no? So limitation of our current vaccine, for example, it is all the studies conducted are within the age range of what? Around 18 or 16 to 65. That is the age range. That is the limitation of previous studies. Now you want to expand this. Okay, and that is the reason why we cannot at this point vaccinate children, because we don't have evidence that it will be effective, it will be safe, it will be efficacious to young people, to children. Okay, so that's the limitation, and that's why you want to conduct that particular study. Okay, so what solution do you propose, okay, for your third part? So here you can state your hypothesis, your purpose, the main goal of the research. Okay, so you can mention in this study or in this research we examined this, okay, or we analyze this. Okay, so doon nyo ilalagay yung one. Okay, so that is your three-part study. Now, I want us to look into a specific example. So I've taken this from a journal. So we have here induction of cell death on Plasmodium falciparum, asexual blood stages by Solanum nudum steroids. Okay, so that is the title. Let's look into the introduction part. Okay, okay, you will notice here what is the main problem. The problem here is malaria. Okay, so the authors or the researchers would like to address this problem. So it talks about malaria, it talks about Plasmodium falciparum as the cause for a certain form of malaria. Okay, and there is a lack of anti-malarial drugs. There is emergence of drug-resistant malarial parasites. Okay, and that will contribute to global increase in the number of cases. Okay, but please take note, that is a very, very short paragraph. It doesn't talk much about the details regarding Plasmodium falciparum or drug-resistant malarial parasites, etc. It talks about malaria and it gives you a very broad description of the problem. No? Pero it's already there. You know right away the main problem for this research. Now, background. Okay, background of the study. It talks about Solanum nudum, okay, which is a plant used in traditional medicine, etc. So it talks about some background research about this particular plant species. And then it talks about steroid effects, no, on the cell membrane and its effect in Plasmodium. Okay. So for the first part, first paragraph, it talks about the whole concept, talks about the problem. Okay, and that will be the main target of the research. Now, for the second part, so here they started with, it has been suggested that plasmodium may die by programmed cell death. Okay, with similar characteristics, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so again, this is background research, previously studied work. Okay, previous research work. Okay, so after this report, it was observed DNA fragmentation evaluated, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that is your, and then recently, okay, so from previous work, and then you have your recent work, found that DNA fragmentation and disruption, etc., etc. Okay, so after this, so this is now your review of related literature. You don't need to go into details. Just pick pertinent, very important statements from previous studies and organize it into a paragraph. Okay. Now, there is that gap. However, after all those previous studies, however, there is lack of consensus on cell death induced by cytotoxic agents. So there is now a discrepancy, or there is a controversy, no, between previous studies. Okay, and that is why you want to validate it, you want to confirm it. Okay, so this is now the gap. And therefore, in this work, we showed morphological and physiological evidence associated with some apoptotic-like, etc. Okay, so now this is part of your conclusion. Okay, so you just need to summarize, you know, what you found in order to answer the gap. Okay, oops. Okay, so again, that is the gap. That is part of your hypothesis, which you have already proven to address that gap. Okay. Now, common errors when writing your introduction, it's quite long, it's rambling. Again, focus your attention to those three paragraph rule, no, or three-part rule. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's you only have three paragraphs for your introduction. Okay, so it simply means you have three parts or three sections. Okay, extensive listing of references. Again, pick the most essential, pick the most recent, no references. Extensive critique of others' work. You are not here to degrade some of the previous work. You are simply stating some facts. Okay, unfounded claims. Okay, do not simply write without evidence or proof. Important previous work is missing. Again, you have to write down or mention what is lacking or what is important, no, for your particular topic. Objectives not clearly stated and focus. Inclusion of data, results, and conclusions. Okay. The last part, you may add your conclusion, but just be, it should be simple. It should be a summary of your work. Okay, so do not go into details. Okay, that's the important part here. So again, you should be able to, when you write here, you can use these phrases when you want to introduce a concept. So emerging evidence suggests that, okay, or it has been hypothesized that. Okay. Now, when you want to introduce previous work, then you can say data from these studies or previous studies shows that, or recent studies indicate that. Okay, so you can make use of these phrases. Introducing limitations. These studies, however, are limited by something. And when you want to introduce studies as well. Whether X is related to Y is unclear, so as to write the gap, between studies, or few studies have concluded, okay, in this. Or I want something like this. There is lack of consensus, okay, on this particular topic. Okay, so that's one way to show it. Okay, so the introduction should provide link between your problem and some unanswered questions from previous studies and your proposed solution. Okay, and propose answer to those unanswered questions. So it will also link prior studies to your proposed study. Okay. Now, other than your introduction, you should also include in your thesis or proposal or manuscript objectives of your study. Okay, so the objectives of the study gives you the direction of your research. It must be doable. It must be, of course, doable, time bound. No, it should be simple, and this will be the basis of your experimental method. Okay, so it should match the chronology or the order when you do your experiments should match the objectives of the study. Okay, so for example, if you are doing natural products, okay, you will start with what? You'll start with collection, okay, and then you'll start with extraction. After collection, you extract, and then you analyze. Okay, so in your experimental method, that's listed there. Now, when you write your objectives, okay, include that same chronology, or same order. So collection, extraction, and phytochemical screening of this. Okay. Now, general objective versus specific. Of course, the general objective gives you the overall goal of the study, and specific ones, well, you go to each part of your research, and what you want to accomplish there. Okay. Hypothesis. Now, do I need to include this in the manuscript? Well, it depends. Okay, it depends on your thesis advisor. Some professors would want you to include a hypothesis in your manuscript. Others don't. Personally, I don't need to see the hypothesis. Okay, but in case you need to write down your hypothesis, well, it is of course an educated guess. It is not simply a guess. It should be backed up by references, of course. Okay. So this is a statement which can be tested using an experiment. You have your independent variable and your dependent variable, of course. Okay. So this will help you introduce your thinking process, at the start of the study. It will help you structure the procedure or methodology, and it will help you provide the format of your presentation, analysis, and interpretation of data. Okay? You just need to write your null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. So null hypothesis, there is no existence of effect, interaction, relationship, no difference. Okay, so there is no difference between this and that. Okay, or there is no interaction between this and that. The alternate hypothesis will be there is an effect, there is an interaction, there is a relationship, there is a difference. Yun lang naman. Okay, like I said, personally, I don't need to see this, but some of the professors might want to include this in the manuscript. Okay. Okay. So characteristics of a good hypothesis should be written as a definitive statement, not as a question. It should be tested or can be tested uh, using an experiment. It can be observed. Okay, it is based on observations and knowledge. Again, it should be backed up by uh, future previous work. Okay, it should predict the anticipated results. No, shows reasonable explanation of a given phenomena and supports or conforms to other studies. Like I said, it should be supported by previous studies. Okay. Now, this is the important part. Okay, other than, so you have your introduction, you also have your objectives of the study. The next important part of your manuscript should be scope and limitations. Okay. You don't need to separate scope and limitations in terms of a particular section. Now, but you have to differentiate the two. Okay. So scope and limitations will set the limitations and establishes certain boundaries in your research study. Okay, so the scope defines where and when the study was conducted, what are the test subjects involved in the study. Okay, will you be using cell cultures? From what? What is the source? Uh, will you be using animal models? What sort of animal will be involved? So something like that. When will you gather or collect your samples? What particular area, no, or region? Something like that. So that's the scope. Limitation. So this is a phrase or aspect of the investigation that may affect the results adversely, but over which the researcher has no control. So the main difference, guys, between scope and limitations is that for the scope, you have control over it. Okay, you know when to get your sample, where to get your sample, how will you test it? Okay, you have control of that. The limitation are the things that you do not have any control. No? So sometimes you have to mention that. Okay. So, uh, so for example, you want to get a sample. Your study is about air pollution. Okay, so that's the overall study. Usually, you want that to be during what? During summer, okay? And you should be able, because it's dry, the air is dry, it's summer, well, that's why you pick those dates. But suddenly, in the middle of summer, it rained. Okay, and that will, of course, have an impact on the collection of your gas samples. Okay, or if you're studying PM 2.5 or PM 10, no, so that will have a severe effect. You put that in your limitation. No, meaning when you mention the results of your study, you have to mention that in between June and July it rained, or in between April to July it rained. You have no control over that. Okay, or there was a storm and therefore you were not able to collect data because there was a storm at this period. That's part of the limitation. Okay. Okay, next. Okay, review of related literature. So, what are the functions? So it serves to provide a conceptual or theoretical framework, provides information about past researches related to your research topic, and gives the researcher a feeling of confidence. Confidence in what? Confidence that your study will work, that you will be able to make sense and understand uh, or anticipate the results of your study, because you have this review of related literature. Okay? You know that it will work and it will be okay because it should, based on previous work. Okay, so that gives you a certain confidence, no? Because it's backup. We might ask you, why are you using this particular method? You cannot say, because my advisor told me to use this method. No, you cannot say that. And please do not say that. Okay, you have to back it up. Okay, well, it was used by these researchers. Okay? They've used this for this particular sample. Okay, so you need to back it up. Okay, don't simply say because my advisor told me to do this. Okay, so it gives information about the research methods used, population sampling considered, instruments used in gathering data, statistical analysis. Okay, provides findings and conclusions of past studies that the researcher may relate to his or her own findings and conclusions. Okay, so this is again will help you anticipate, okay, the results, or it will help you understand why this thing happened. Okay, well, according to this paper, that's normal. Or according to this paper, that is unexpected. Well, then you have to think about uh, a good, reasonable explanation for your results and findings. Oops, sorry. Okay, now, types of literature. Tama. Conceptual literature versus research literature. So conceptual, these are books, these are monographs. Research-based literature are journal articles. Okay, choosing the right literature. It should be relevant to your study. And like I said, you need to focus on your topic. Do not talk about other irrelevant material. It should be updated. No, not unless you are referring to a very specific, very important um, piece of information from an old literature. Sometimes it happens, no? But in a lot of cases, it has to be the most recent ones. Should be science-based, of course. We are after quality, not really quantity. And guys, never, ever use Wikipedia as your source of information. Okay? Never use other organizations' website as your source of information. No, mahirap yan. Okay? So, yun ang babantayan natin.